Welcome back to the Coffee Slut Podcast. Midterm elections are here. Emotions are high, timelines are short. Today's episode, I'm talking to Courtney Head, who is running for lieutenant governor here in Texas. She is from San Antonio. And in today's episode, we talk about politics, immigration enforcement, and why you should go vote and why it matters. So let's go in and let's start the episode. Well, are we on? Yes, we are. Hi. Hello, Courtney Head. Welcome to the Coffee Slut Podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. Just drove up this morning from San Antonio with the kids.
Which I'm very grateful for.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I do want to thank you for coming on. I know you don't. Do you drink coffee?
I do sometimes. I'm definitely more of a matcha green tea person. It's just easier on my stomach.
I
have celiac.
Okay.
So sometimes the coffee can be a little harsh.
Start off with that. Like, what's your coffee order? What's your drink order? I am a coffee girl myself. We are in front of Odd Roots. We already had her on the podcast, which I'm very excited, but it's locally owned and I'm super excited to be here with you and talk about what is going on. But before we start, I want to know a little bit about you and how you grew up.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I grew up in San Antonio. My dad was in the military, so I wasn't born here. But my mom's family has been in Texas for 4 generations.
Beautiful.
And so was raised in San Antonio. My parents split when I was pretty young, and my mom raised me with the help of her parents here. And grew up in San Antonio. I would say average childhood. I was very blessed to have the support of my grandparents. Probably would have been much different if it was just my mom. And then I started my college experience at San Antonio College, and I got a degree in paralegal studies because I was interested in law, wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it. And during that time, I also interned for Congressman Joaquin Castro. From there, I transferred to University of Houston, and then I majored in philosophy with a minor in political science. And my focuses there were mostly on political philosophy and modern political theory. I find politics very interesting, and my kind of space, I bring the more philosophical aspect, kind of analytical thinking about it. And during that undergrad experience in Houston, I worked at Apple. So I was in the retail experience. That was rough.
Corporate girly for a while.
Well, it wasn't necessarily corporate. It was retail, like in the mall.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So I was a technician. You go to the Genius Bar, that was me. And it was a really awesome experience. I met so many people, especially in Houston, because everybody's coming into the Galleria. Mm-hmm. Lots of business people from all over the world. And it was just a great experience. And I still have friends this day from Apple that I've worked with previously. I mean, it's like Apple fam, you're fam for life. You struggle and go through the trenches of being in Apple together.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, I have some student loans I need to pay off.
Yeah, for sure.
So I didn't really think that public policy would have been the best option for me. And I got an offer for a role here in Austin with a software company. And it was a role to be in contracts and commercial negotiations. Mm-hmm. And really kind of opened my eyes to corporate and commercial law and the opportunities that are there. And it was in the technology sphere, so still, had my hand in that and really grew from that role. I spent almost 5 years with that company, kind of in the trenches, negotiating with all kinds of different businesses, locally, government entities, and even foreign governments. And then from there, I was scouted for another software company to be their head of legal operations and management.
Oh, wow.
And they liked my resume simply because I had a background in technology. I understand that I've done very high stakes negotiation processes, and I had the ability to, part of my role is actually transforming processes and innovating our structures and making sure they're scalable, right? Because as businesses grow, you need to make sure that you have the foundation in place to support that growth. And so I started that role and I built out our online contract repository processes and request systems, and have been, we actually expanded that company internationally to Mexico, Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of cool things, and it's been a really awesome ride. I mean, I'm still really young. I'm only 35, but I feel like I've been able to grow and learn a lot, in the past decade, and, just appreciate everywhere that has taken me and where I've come now.
But I think even still, as a young person, I think we need more young people in what is going on. With that and with your background, I do want to know, why should we care about politics? There's a lot of people that talk about oh, I don't want to talk about politics. It's not something that I want to talk about. But everything is political.
Oh, absolutely.
Down to what I do for a living, which is fitness.
Yeah.
And everything is political. But, you know, mid-elections right now are loud. Everyone's arguing. Everybody's scared that the Dems will switch Texas, obviously, with everything going on.
Yeah.
But I want to know, as somebody who is running for lieutenant governor, like, let's start there. Why should we care?
Yeah, so you should care because everything, like you said, is political. You know, how much we pay for our groceries, how well our schools are funded. So everything is political. You know, are the grocery prices, gas prices, the funding and the salaries for our teachers, right? Public education. There's literally nothing, you know, the quality of the air that we breathe is political. I mean, literally everything about life. And, you know, when you break it down to this, I can understand the apathy. Trust me, before I decided to run for office, I was pretty much fed up, you know, with the system in itself. I feel like there's no change no matter what political party is, you know, in power, right? We're all kind of just slaves to the corporate lobbyists and billionaires.
Yes, exactly.
And, you know, it's frustrating. And I was like, the only way that this change will occur is through people, right? Through everyday people. And a lot of my decision came from like just understanding more about Texas politics and how there are so many barriers in place for the average person to participate. So like, for example, most people don't know that Texas government is literally a part-time government. They only meet every 2 years.
Oh, shit.
And
that's something new.
Yes, they only meet every 2 years and only for 140 days, each of that every biennial process. And so that's why they're paid part-time wages too. So all of our Texas legislators, whether they're senators or House of Representatives, and even the lieutenant governor, the role that I'm going for, they only get paid $7,200 a year.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I mean, so it's not a livable wage. And so that barrier, that wage barrier already inhibits average people like teachers or social workers, right? Or therapists or community members from being able to participate and be a, you know, representative, right? Because nobody can afford to give up their salary and live off $7,200 a year. Granted, there is a per diem stipend of like $220 a day in session, but it's still not enough.
But most people have to be with a partner to have a sustainable living. And that's a lot of statistics that I've seen is that a lot of people who are single struggle more than people who are in a dual income household.
Right, exactly. And that's the only opportunity that's the reason that I have the opportunity, I should say, to do that is because I am married, right? I have a spouse who is making money and would be able to support if I were to take on this role.
Yeah.
But that, you know, that opportunity is not afforded to that average person. And the average person is who we need in politics. You know, we don't need insiders, people who are wealthy businessmen or trust fund babies, because look at the status, you know, I mean, look at the state of everything. So, you know, I really am coming from a place of wanting to break down these barriers that prevent everyday, average, like common sense people from being able to create change in policy.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And like I said, I think we need more regular people who don't come from a trust fund, who don't come from money, and obviously who aren't men. I'm sick and tired of always seeing men in leadership. And I really everybody has their own perspective.
Right.
I understand when it comes down to not agreeing with somebody, but as Texas as well, and then as a country, it's okay to disagree, right? But it's like right now in the state that we are in, especially Texas, it's like, no, like the libs are too extreme, or independence, no, like nobody's ever gonna vote for independence. It has to be this way, and it only has to be this way. And with for someone who doesn't follow politics, what is lieutenant governor, and what does it entail daily operations, I would
Absolutely.
say.
So lieutenant governor is basically the COO of the Senate. They're running the Senate, and they set all the committees in the committee leadership, which is really important. So for example, Dan Patrick's been the lieutenant governor, and what he's done in the committees is he's putting the leaders of these committees as, you know, all sycophants who believe in whatever the Republican Party believes in, right? And so there's not a lot of diverse leadership opportunity when you have one person calling the shots. And the lieutenant governor also has a very important role. They sit on the legislative budget board, so basically determines where the money's going in Texas. And that is huge. They have a very big say in that. And so these two areas, are important. And the day in and day out for the lieutenant governor is looking like, so they will set these committees, right? They have state affairs, finance, transportation, and they can vary also by legislative session. It just depends on the lieutenant governor. And so what he'll do, or she'll do, is they'll set these committees, right? And then they will choose members from the Senate to be the leaders of those committees, and then choose the committee members, right, to go in there. And from there, these committees will then be drafting the legislation that will then be put on the Senate floor for argument to be passed into a bill and go to the governor's desk. But what happens is these committees can write, and what happens is these legislators, they push like thousands of bills. They'll throw them all out there because they all want to get their name, as they drafted legislation, right? It's a big deal. And the lieutenant governor will go in for the Senate agenda daily, and he will determine, or she will determine, what bills are actually heard on the floor. So it's very, very important.
Yeah.
They will determine whether we get a bill on, the 10 Commandments in schools versus actually having fully funded schools and higher teacher salaries. Yeah. So it's a huge, huge power to be able to set the agenda and set exactly what is going to be pushed into law. And that affects day-to-day lives of everybody, right?
Yeah.
Whether we have policies that are going to be more socially progressive and benefit everybody, or if they're going to be ideological Christian nationalists,
In your own opinion, and what you're trying to do, what do you feel like Texas needs the most right now, especially with this midterm election?
Yes. Texas needs the most. We need a sound, objective voice to lead policy and to ensure that, especially for the lieutenant governor role, we need somebody who's going to speak for the people. And that means all people, right? And what we're missing here is we have a select, distinct group that has been in power for so long in Texas, and there hasn't been a lot of vocal policy for the people. And so my push would be, we need to have somebody in place, and that includes all seats, not just the lieutenant governors, but we need to have somebody in place who's going to listen to the people and push policies that's more people-focused, community-focused, socially focused, because when we have stable social structures in place and safety nets, it benefits everybody. It benefits the economy, benefits innovation, right? And our children, obviously. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
And so that's my biggest push. That we have people in place who are going to listen and speak for the people and be objective, right?
I think that's what we need. Period, point blank. That's the most important thing. I feel like with the same people in power, especially here in Texas, it's just gotten worse each and every year and every term. I remember the first, and I do want to talk and touch on this a little bit, with the ice storms and when the grid went down. A lot of people who don't live in Texas, we say we over exaggerate because we aren't used to the cold. But in reality, like, our grid went down, so many people died.
Yes.
And our fucking, what's his name? Ted Cruz went to Cancun
Cruz.
Especially during a time where we needed him the most, right? And I do want to touch a little bit on that for Texas and how that affected people and their decisions right now, especially. I know he ran, what was it, like a year or two ago? And he won again, which I don't understand. But I do want to touch a little bit on that, about the grid and how that could, like, how we should bring people who will actually care about Texas.
Right.
And won't allow that to happen, and be there for their people and be there to support them, especially during a time where our grid went down.
Yeah.
And how that was flawed, and how a lot of people passed away and a lot of people died. We all lost electricity.
Oh, yeah.
Especially people in poverty,
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I was in Austin when that happened. My daughter and I, we had lost power. It was like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 days.
It was a while. It was like a week.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was so cold.
We had to be rescued by one of our friends because it was literally, she was becoming hypothermic. It was like 30 degrees in the house.
Oh my God.
But yes, so and that's the funny thing, is that Greg Abbott has come out saying that it's totally fixed, everything's fine, and it's not. We haven't had the same type of storm or the same duration, the same snowfall, and all of those specific, weather occurrences are not the same. So grid stabilization, weatherization, and modernization is very important. I would think that that should be, not just that, but that should be very important for voters to think about and consider, that we have leaders that are wanting to ensure that it is stabilized, and not just stabilized for weather adjustments, but also stabilized for all these AI data centers, right? That are coming in, and that electricity burden is what, going to be placed on us? I don't think so. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's important. And I think that a lot of Texans aren't aware that we have a really strong renewables footprint already, right? So we're number one producer in wind energy. We're number two in solar. And that's without a full-fledged renewable system.
I didn't know that.
And a lot of people don't, right? They don't talk about this because the Republicans and, they don't want to give renewables a win. And it is a win because this is the future, okay? There's a reason that oil and gas, it's not going to sustain long term because it is not a renewable source, right? And so when we think about the grid, we also need to incorporate renewables and expansion into that to ensure that we have sustainability, right? When I talk about make sure that we have scalable structures, that's part of that. We need to incorporate those beneficial industries into our energy grid. And oil and gas is never going to go away. I'm not saying it's it's going to be replaced, but we should not be stifling opportunity and innovation simply because billionaires are paying the bucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And it's also, harming Texans because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs in this industry that could be made. And they're good jobs. They're well-paying jobs. They're high trainable jobs, and they would be rural and urban alike. So it wouldn't be isolated to just one area of Texas. It'd be everywhere. And so it's really essential that we focus on grid stability, modernization, battery storage, and also protection against AI data centers and their corporations, right? Because there's no reason for Texans to be supplementing the energy costs for these companies. I mean, that's essentially like a socialism for these companies. Why should we take up the payment, right, for their use?
Yeah, exactly. And I think with what had happened recently, which I didn't know, was that I didn't know we got oil from Venezuela. Like I had no clue. I thought it was just from like here. I thought we just self-produced it. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought here in Texas, like we were the ones who produced
there's
oil.
Different types of oil.
Okay.
So the oil we produce here is not necessarily the type that is the one that we use. I'm not a engineer or a oil and gas expert by any means, but I do know that the oil type from Venezuela is more commonly used. And so that's why
I see.
But we get oil from many other places, not just the United States, and not just Venezuela and
Afghanistan, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So there's some other areas of the world, and I think also Canada produces as well.
Oh wow, I had no clue.
I think that I was reading that Greenland has some natural like chemicals too that we are. That's why
that's why he's trying to buy it.
Well, and that's exactly you think about all of the countries that the United States has had a presence in or invaded. It is because of oil and gas.
Yeah, it always comes down to that. I feel like
it is. We're not trying to bring peace anywhere. We're trying to take natural resources.
Yes, exactly. And, I think as a country, and not just Texas, but I think we need to always be good with everybody else.
Oh, yeah.
I think we always, we need to be on good terms to thrive as a country with everybody else, not make more enemies. I think World War I, World War II is a great example.
Yeah.
But I do want to lean into a little bit why we talked a little bit before, right? And I do want to talk about why you felt unheard within the Democratic Party.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like for me personally, I've been voting for almost 2 decades now, and I have been waiting for change, I think, in the Democratic Party. And I think as I've gotten older, I've become more disillusioned, and I feel like they've been like bought out by corporations, just like Republicans, right? And lobbyists. And I just don't see, like, when there was opportunity, right, when we did have power, like with Obama and Biden, the change that was made, I felt was not strong enough, not fighting hard enough.
I agree with you on that. I don't think they were strong as a party at all. like, I think there is still stuff going on, and I truly believe a big reason was we lost the election because of that. And I am a liberal. Like, I go for, but I go for human rights as well, and like just human decency before anything else and before any party. And my husband's an independent, and he sees both sides, and like we've talked a little bit about that. But I think if they wouldn't have taken out Biden and kept him on, I felt like we could have won. But since they made that trade with Kamala last minute, people not knowing, and I don't know why, she was the vice president for 4 years, not knowing who she was or voting because they had no clue who she was. I'm like, she was your vice president for 4 years prior. How do you not know who she is? And that's my issue with that. And I think, like, and I'll let you finish your answer, but what specifically made you feel that way?
Yeah, so my specific reaction was simply because I did not feel that the movement was strong enough. So like, for example, with Biden and Harris, I feel like they could have pushed policies more strongly. And I think a lot of this also is with education. It starts with education.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just like our public education, but just educating people on public policy and breaking down those barriers of understanding. And, most of, like you said, people didn't even know she was VP. They're not involved. And I think part of that is on the media too. Because I will say, I have been running for lieutenant governor since, I had to, you have to do your application in October. So I've been running for several months, and I cannot tell you in the first week of early voting, or right before the first week of early voting, I got like 100 media interviews. And it's like, I've been running for months, guys, and you're just now wanting to talk about it. And so it's so many different facets of change, but I just felt like Biden and Harris could have pushed stronger, pushed for more policies, as far as like Medicaid, or Medicaid for all, Medicare for all, like social policies and structures that we need. And I feel like they should also be fighting back stronger. And this isn't just like Biden and Harris. I feel like this is just a lot of Democrats. There's some Democrats like Crockett and AOC and Bernie who really fight.
Yes.
And Bernie's an independent, I guess, but they really push and fight and push those boundaries. And I don't feel like a lot of the Democratic Party has been doing that to that standard. I feel like they coast on it. And I feel like, a lot of reason that people were upset with Harris. Of course, I voted for her because, I'm not going to be voting for Trump. Are you kidding me? But, a lot of people were upset about the response in Gaza and Palestine. And I rightfully so, justifiably. I mean, it's literally state-sponsored genocide. And,
and could you touch a little bit on that for people who don't know?
Yes. So for people who aren't aware, Israel has occupied Palestine since the 1940s, 1947, and has slowly taken away land and has,
basically invaded, right?
Yes. And occupied. And it is an apartheid state. I mean, I have friends that have family in the West Bank and family in Gaza. And it is a two-people system. If you are not an Israeli, they treat you differently. And I would encourage many Americans, especially Americans that call themselves Christians and evangelical Christians who support Israel, to look up videos of how Israelis treat Christians over there. They spit on them. They do not like Christians. And many people have been kind of dissuaded by this, cause of evangelical Christian. They think that they should be supporting Israel, and I would encourage them to look at the history, look at the facts, because this is not the case. And I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have a right to exist by any means, but I don't think that any state has a right to exist if it's occupying other people. You look at our own history as a state, or as a country. I mean, we completely massacred and genocided the indigenous people here, right? And not just our European ancestors. I mean, but like also the Spanish, also the French. Like it was a white colonial project for many nations, right? And unfortunately, it's going to take a lot of time to deconstruct that, right? A lot of people don't want to think about, oh, my ancestors were actually not the good guys. And that's just the case of life. But you can choose to change that narrative now, right? And learn. and make sure that there is equitable, access and opportunity for everybody, right? No matter where they're from.
And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but a lot of Native Americans who were pushed out, right, that took over. There is places here in the United States where they have their little section and that nobody else is allowed,
Yeah,
correct?
they're sovereign nations.
Yes, they have little nations where nobody, like well, they're Americans too, but no American can enter. This is their space. But also, I do want to touch a little bit on like a bunch of Native Americans go missing.
Oh, yes.
And there's a lot of people in like the U.S. government in those sections, whatever they are doing in there, because that is their section that nobody else is allowed. But a lot of young women in those spaces go missing.
Yes.
And I've seen a lot of like research. I've done a lot of things, but I think the best production that actually made me see it differently was Wind River, and it talks about exactly that, like how a bunch of women, indigenous women, go missing.
Oh, yes.
And here in America, and it's like,
it's huge. It's a big issue, not just here in America, in Canada as well. And to your point, these sovereign nations, it's not that people cannot go on them. I've been on Ute land, like you can drive through them.
Okay.
You're just not like, obviously there's some areas that are restricted, it's not a big deal. But, and that's what happens, right? People are traveling on roads and, young women, indigenous women are being like assaulted, taken, murdered, or go missing. And that is a huge issue. That is one of the actually biggest minorities that is affected is missing indigenous women. And it just goes to show, like, it just makes me feel like nothing has really changed much. Like women, especially women of color, indigenous women, black women, minority women are always the ones that are overlooked, overshadowed, and the most persecuted.
yeah.
And it's just disheartening. It doesn't feel like humanity's sociologically has changed much in the last 100 years, because that was the same hundreds of years ago as well.
Yeah, and I do want to like touch on, since we are talking about this a little bit, for people, especially young people here in Texas, what would you tell them if they feel like politically homeless and they don't know if they should vote or not?
Yes.
Because
that's a hard one.
Yeah, every vote makes a difference.
It does.
It really
and your
does.
vote matters. Your vote matters. They wouldn't be trying so hard to shut you up.
Yes.
If it didn't make a difference. And the whole purpose of this democratic experiment is to use your voice. That is why we have it. And so I would say to them,
and this is like to everybody.
Yeah,
like
to
people
no matter
of
what
color.
party you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you from? What economic, socioeconomic, ethical, whatever, or ethnic background. I would just say to do not be disheartened. Things are changing. There are a lot of people like myself. I can't tell you how many other young candidates I've met on the road campaigning, and there are people who are just like you, right, going through life, and they want to represent your best interest, their best interest, the community's best interest, and it may take a little bit of work. You may have to do a little bit of work right now. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
You need to do a little bit of research. Thankfully, most of us have access to some sort of technology. So you will need to do a little bit of work. It's not going to be easy, but nothing good in life is ever that easy, right? And so I would say to just do a little bit of research, do a little bit of homework, and please use your vote, because it is the only opportunity you truly have. It is the only thing that we really have left. And hopefully we still have it, right? With the SAVE Act passing, hopefully not in the Senate, but it's already passed in the House, right? Federal House, and it would disenfranchise so many people from being able to vote if you don't have a passport or if you don't have access to your birth certificate. And for many women, like my married name is different than my name on my birth certificate. You know what I mean? And so, and not many, only I think a small portion of Americans actually have passports, right?
Yeah.
And I need to update mine. Mine has my maiden name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's essentially a poll tax. And so we need to ensure that we use our voice, especially to prevent being silenced.
And it's crazy about you like changing your passport. I got married too, and I didn't change my name. I did not change my name. I was like, no, I'm keeping my last name.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about immigration, because we were touching on people of color. Immigration is one of the most polarizing issues here in Texas right now.
Yeah.
And we you know, with everything going on with the ICE raids, what do you feel like is so broken about the immigration laws and ICE and like this? I don't know why they are even a system, ICE in specific, because they are putting kids, they are putting people who aren't criminals. Most of these people who are in ICE detention centers are literally just regular Joes who came to make a life of themselves.
Yeah.
And that I believe it's 70% of people who are in detention centers that are not criminals.
Right.
And
they usually have some sort of status.
yes, exactly. And so I just want to know, in your perspective, why do you feel like it's so broken? Especially like with this administration honing in on them and giving them billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Just want to know your opinion on that.
Yes. Well, I think it's broken intentionally.
Okay.
And I feel that it hasn't been fixed by either party because they have been using immigrants as a scapegoat for many years. And this is long before. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of years.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In fact, the first Immigration Act the United States ever passed was the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 or 83, which would exclude Chinese immigrants from being able to come to the United States.
Oh.
And that was put in place to protect the white majority and to kind of create a peace for the poor white population that was kind of being put to the side because these Chinese immigrants were taking jobs and would take a smaller wage, lower wages, and being taken advantage of, right? So there was, our policies in and of itself, the immigration policies, were built on a foundation of white supremacy and controlling what population was allowed to come here.
I see.
And so that has just continued as our immigration policies have passed. And so the system is, in my opinion, intentionally broken in such a way to maintain a white supremacy and a white majority, and to provide the political powers with a scapegoat and somebody to blame, right? And that's exactly what they've done, right? Because they have created this fear amongst these people who support ICE, right? The Republicans, whoever, that these immigrants are coming in and they're committing crimes, when the reality is no, it's literally 1% of the population.
Yeah.
I think if you look statistically, the highest population that commits crime is straight white men.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
It's true. It's not a lie.
A majority of school shootings.
Most violent crimes, 90% of violent crimes is men. And it's like the data is showing that men are the issue and that particular white men are the issue.
Yep.
Why aren't we focusing on them? But they don't. They want to focus on an
Other
easy
things.
target because the immigrant doesn't have any rights.
Yes.
Can't speak up for themselves, can't defend themselves, and now they're just being rounded up regardless of their status or not.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's intentionally broken. It's intentionally set up to create division between people because the reality is I come from private sector, and like I said, I work for a company that's expanded internationally. We have employees that are international, and we're able to vet them, verify their identity, complete their background checks within a matter of a week, maybe 2 weeks tops.
Yeah.
And so the reality is we have technology and tools in place to do this for private companies, that the government could be able to do this as well, right? But the issue is we rely a lot on outdated, right, mostly paper systems, paper-based systems, and a lot of these immigration processes and operations are siloed into various different departments, right? And so they don't have a really good, and this is not just in immigration department, but throughout the United States, all of their federal departments, they don't have a very good technology infrastructure. A lot of it's outdated.
Yeah.
And so what happens is these different departments and subcommittees or, sub-departments, they have a hard time communicating, delivering information, making sure information's up to date. And so a lot of people are doing repetitive work, or they're stuck on processes that would be better served if they put their time and energy into doing different structures, right? And so that is, my thought on it is it's intentionally broken.
Yeah.
To create division, to create fear.
Yeah, to create chaos because everybody's everybody's angry and everybody's upset. And I do want to touch a little bit too, as well as the people who are American citizens that got killed by ICE.
Yeah.
And that was 2 people, Renee Good and Alex.
Keith Porter is another one.
And Keith Porter, okay.
He was in California.
Yes, and
There was also a young man, I just found out about his story here, not locally in Austin, but in San Antonio. He was also killed. He was an American citizen.
Oh my God. See, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's really hard, because what makes me feel broken and like which sucks, these people, regardless of where they are, like these Americans are fighting for us as Latinos, as immigrants, as just like everybody, and they're supporting us and protecting their communities.
Yeah.
And then they suffer from it, especially being killed by their own people.
Yes.
When all of that broke out, and when people were seeing, one was a doctor, correct, or a nurse.
Yeah, nurse, ICU nurse.
And then
Who worked for a VA hospital, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was like, oh my God, he worked for a VA hospital. Like, isn't that insane? Renee Good was, I think also, she was gay. She was in a relationship.
I mean, she was a mom. I don't know what her profession was, but I know she was an artist. She wrote poetry.
Yeah, but also I think what I was seeing online was that she was, she was gay.
Right.
And that was another sign of like, oh, I don't like whoever the ICE agent was. I was like, oh, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, what happens is when people like Renee Good and Alex Purdy, when they stand up for minorities and immigrants and other people, they lose their proximity to whiteness. And so they no longer have the protection, right, that the whiteness can afford them. Especially Renee Good being a lesbian, right, that automatically is going to lose proximity, right, because it's not the standard, family, like,
orientated, like what's
orientation,
normal.
Yes. So when
but it's like, these people are humans.
Oh yeah, no.
Like, why does it matter?
Well, that's the thing. Also, they lose their proximity to whiteness, and they also dehumanize them. They've already dehumanized immigrants, right? Calling them animals, right? The president literally called them animals.
Yes.
Like, what in the world? Anybody who thinks like that is an animal themselves.
Yes.
Like, that is ridiculous.
Well, we have a predator as a president.
Exactly.
So,
No, I mean, it's disgusting. Don't even get me started. I can't even believe, like, it's just disgusting. Going through the Epstein files.
Oh, yeah. I think, and like, we'll go back on what we were talking about, but I think what's insane is that people think it's okay. That
they're trying to normalize it.
Yeah, they're trying to normalize it.
That's what's been happening. It's like they're normalizing this kind of behavior. And the issue is because it is normal. It's just been under wraps for a long time. Because I was reading this article the other day, and it was talking about, if you want to understand predatory behavior or, pedophilic behavior, talk to any woman and ask her when was the first time that she was sexualized.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember being hit on. I was like a teenager, like 12, 11, 13. You know what I mean? And I was already being looked at as a sexual object.
Yeah.
And you can ask any woman, that would probably be their same example. And so it's a really systemic issue with I'm sure it's not just our society. I think like it's an issue around the world.
Yeah.
And it has a lot to do with patriarchy.
Yeah.
Which would be amazing to dismantle. I mean, that's why I feel like, getting your point earlier to having more women in positions of power and in government is important, because most people don't realize that we, as federally in the state of Texas, our female representation is only 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
It's not even 50-50. And we're mostly, not just here in Texas, but mostly federally as well, mostly run by white men.
Yeah.
And I'm fed up with it. I mean, they have had such a long time to run things and make it better. And they haven't. And they don't. I think I saw this meme, and it was talking about how there's this trend going on with women on TikTok, and it's I guess what men will do with a bunch of money and power is just create these pedophilic and cannibalistic rings. And it's women would be creating so much a different life. Right,
for sure. Have you seen Barbie?
Oh, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Of course.
I love it.
And that's a great example, right?
Yes.
The Mojo Jojo house, right?
Yes.
That is the epitome of men. And you know why? Because men are so focused on earning the male gaze.
Yes.
And male affirmation.
Yeah.
And it's just a downward spiral.
No, I know. I agree. And I do want to tell people who saw what happened with these two people getting killed, I guess, how would you make them feel better about what is going on? It's a tough situation, but not make them feel better necessarily, but what they can do to make this country
Yes.
better, especially with what happened.
I think the first thing that we can all do is making sure that we are building community locally. And that's the first step. So in San Antonio, and I think that in Pflugerville as well, but essentially wherever you have these ICE detention facilities, there's a lot of community members that organize, and they go to those places, not just to protest, but to give reassurance to those immigrants that are waiting there. Because I mean, they'll be standing in line just waiting to be processed, and reaffirming them. So it's building that local community and understanding that a lot of people do want change. And it is devastating to see Americans losing their lives to this. But we have to understand that there are probably thousands of immigrants that have already lost their lives
that we
this,
don't know about,
and that we have no
exactly.
idea about. I mean, like the alligator Alcatraz, there was like 1,200 people still unaccounted for.
I don't understand that.
Yes,
I don't think
many people, like, that's the thing, is they infiltrate us with so many different like news story after news story, right? So we forget about the past infraction and the trauma that they've already committed, and so like people completely forgot about alligator Alcatraz, and like that all those people are just missing. Where did they go? They're unaccounted for. Over 1,000 people? Are you kidding me? Like, it's just, oh God.
I think what's crazy too with the whole ICE raids and everything with immigration policies and how bad it got, a lot of people went home. A lot of people went back to their countries because they were scared. They don't want to deal with it. I saw a lot of videos on, like, unfortunately, like I saw most of them on TikTok, and it was like my mom is going back to her country and she's been here for 20 years because she's scared. And like, it's like, holy shit. Like,
I have friends that are American citizens. They were born here. They're just minorities and they're scared.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, DACA recipients are scared, especially here in Texas. Like with the whole DACA recipients, they're like, Abbott threatened to take that away so they couldn't work here. Right. And I want to get your opinion on DACA too. It's because I believe my dad was on DACA. He came when he was like 3. My grandparents brought him here, and it took him 20 years to get his citizenship. Luckily, it was like right before Trump got elected.
Oh, wow.
And it was in 2016, and he got his citizenship. But still, at the end of the day, I'm scared. My dad is like a true Mexican. You can see just by the way he looks. But he's so proud to be in this country and be here, making a living, like working for himself, but also working for his boss that he's been working for 20 years. It's like, I tell him all the time, I'm like, please be careful. Like, don't go out.
Oh, it's terrifying.
And I'm like, he's like, I'll be okay. I'm like, you don't know that. Like, especially right now in the state we are in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're just pulling anybody who's not white.
Exactly. So
it's disgusting. And I feel like for those DACA recipients, I mean, any immigrant, I want them to know that that it's unjust, right? And they should feel safe no matter where they are, because regardless if you're a citizen or not, you have rights in this country. You have due process, or you're supposed to at least, right? And, I want them to know that this state of fear is unacceptable. There are people who are trying to get into positions of power who believe it's unacceptable, who want change, who wants progress. I gave a speech at a protest one time about what the lieutenant governor can do in regards to ICE operations. And we can totally end ICE collaboration. We can pass legislation to overturn, I think it was SB4 that created that cooperation process, overturn that. We can end for-profit detention centers and for-profit prisons. Nobody should be making money off of imprisoning people. That is ridiculous.
It's just,
because how do you stop that system? It's just a snowball effect, because they're going to always need more people to come in if they want to make a profit. It's not going to end just with immigrants. And I think that is something I want all Americans to realize, is once they round up all the immigrants, they're going to come after different groups next. Is it going to be the LGBTQ, A+ people? Is it going to be women who are in positions of power? Who's it going to be next, right? It's always going to be another group of people next. And so I want people to understand, immigrants and DACA recipients, that this fear is unacceptable. We will create change. We just need to have the structure and the people in place to do so. And that's difficult, which is why we need, citizens to vote and use your voice. And I think a lot of Texas has been. I mean, the voter turnout so far has been amazing to see. And obviously I would love for people to vote for me, but even if they don't, having that turnout is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's just really inspiring to see. And I think it's going to help inspire others to also vote.
So every morning when I have sessions in the morning, like early as fuck, I watch a bunch of stuff what's going on. Like that's the only way I can just like, it kind of sucks too, because where I work, we're not allowed to talk about politics, which is kind of insane. But anyways, I talk about and like listen to videos in the morning, and it always goes back to like Texas is the voting rate is up.
Yes.
Where more people are showing up. Texans are tired of what is going on.
Yeah.
So that goes back to community, right? That goes back to we need to show up for people, we need to show up for Texas, but also we need to show up for this country.
Yes.
And I'm excited, and hopefully we can turn a seat, turn heads, and be like, oh shit, like the president's scared.
Yeah.
And I know he is. But I do want to talk about, like, after COVID, we did see so much division, especially with the president that we had and like before Biden got elected.
Yeah.
How do you feel like we can rebuild community across political lines?
So I think a lot of that division in COVID stemmed from misinformation.
Oh, okay.
And this kind of division in between science, right, and an opinion.
Yes.
And so I think that...
Oh, yes, because the whole vaccinating.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Okay.
The masks, everything, everybody's, in uproar about it. And so I think that we would need to use, so instead of using misinformation, we need to use education to bring back communities together. Because I think that, I've had conversations with Republican voters, and almost all of them agree with the basic principles of the policies that I promote, which would be fully funding education. We want our teachers to be paid.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
They do so much.
I don't know a Republican who's going to disagree with that, right? A lot of Republicans believe in cannabis reform here in Texas and federally, right? Why would we stifle the opportunity to have a new economy, right? And to grow our economy. And a lot of Republicans believe in better public transportation as well, right? Because they use it too. And so I think that part of creating that bridge is in education, but it's also in compassion, right? And listening, because at the end of the day, regardless of the political affiliation, everybody wants to be heard.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to feel like their voice matters, their opinion matters. And I think that listening to people is where we start, and then also kind of re-educating and redirecting, because there is so much misinformation. I mean, and what's very frustrating is we don't have the systems in place to educate people to disseminate this information and to analyze it and critically assess, like, is this actually real? I think that anybody who takes whatever a politician or a leader says at face value is kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Even myself, like, please verify anything I say. Like, you have the internet at your fingertips. You have your God-given brain. Use it.
Yeah.
Don't just take things at face value from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that really community and compassion and education is how we rebuild that bridge, and kind of eliminate the divisiveness. It's really hard, because what's happened is the Republican Party, I would say the MAGAs, have really done a good job of creating fear in people.
Yes.
They make people very afraid. And there's actually been analysis on the brains of people who are more conservative leaning, and their amygdala and their cortisol levels are triggered by fear-based information. So they are more prone to be driven by fear-based motives. And so it's like, how do you restructure that from, the progressive talking points that you want to pass? And so there's a really great creator who's a psychologist, but he's like a political psychologist, and he talks about how to reframe progressive idea points so that they would be more receptive to conservative individuals. And so, like, some of them is like, hey, billionaires use our resources and they take up space here too. They should pay their fair share of taxes.
Yeah.
I would think that most conservatives would agree with that, right? If they're also, sure, they're making opportunity. Okay, sure. But there's no reason that they should not pay their fair share of taxes, right?
Yeah.
If they're also using the services and getting that opportunity from us here. And so it's a matter of reframing it and also trying to quell those fears. You know, they're so afraid. And I think that they should be more afraid of the pedophiles in their own party.
Yes, exactly. I totally agree. What's something you think both parties get wrong?
I think that both parties get wrong the connection that we need with the people.
Yeah.
I think that, and that's kind of been my dissent with the Democrats. It's like they're so corporate, right?
Yes.
And I think that we have a difficult time connecting with individuals when we're just trying to tell them what to do and what to think. And part of that is being compassionate listener, right? And I think that both of them get that wrong. Yeah. I think that the corporate structure and lobbyist structure of our government really has been affected in both parties.
Yeah.
And I think that's a place that we get it wrong on both sides.
And I agree. And first of all, I do appreciate you talking to me about this because it is something a lot of people don't talk about. I think especially my age, I think a lot of younger people right now are so into what is going on. They're so aware. People in high schools, like people younger, they're just like, we want change. We're tired. We're sick. And if nobody knows, but in Texas recently, there was a lot of kids who walked out in protest because of everything going on. And unfortunately, not far from me in Hays County, there was a man, a MAGA man, who ended up laying hands on this young girl when they were protesting, literally got out of his car. He was arrested, so thank God.
Yeah.
But situations like that should not be happening, period, point blank, especially for the young crowd who want to make a change.
Oh, yeah.
They see what we're struggling with and they want to be involved. And I'm so happy because I wasn't like that at that age. At 16, I wasn't even thinking about politics.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that I'm really glad it's evolving and changing. But I do want to head into kind of like a rapid fire.
Sure.
One-ended answer, if you can. What's one issue Texas isn't talking about enough?
I would say renewables.
Renewables?
Or high-speed rail.
Okay. Oh, yes. Yes, we talked about that last time. Who holds more power in Texas politics than people realize?
Definitely the lieutenant governor.
Okay.
Most people don't know how powerful that role is, and they have the most power of what bills pass and like literally what the law is, more so than the governor. It's the most powerful position.
One last one. If you lose or win, what's next?
Well, I'm going to advocate for whoever is the primary nominee to make sure that they win in November. I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Beautiful. I love
that. Yeah.
I love it.
Because if we have another Dan Patrick or any other Republican office, we're not going to get the change that we need. So it doesn't matter who wins. I mean, like, obviously I'd love to win, but I'm definitely the underdog in this race. But whoever wins it, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that they win in November.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. There's two Democratic parties running right now, and I think they're both fantastic. Crockett, and I can't pronounce his name.
Tallarico? Yes.
Do you think like either or would be a good option?
Yes, I think either or is a good option. It's such a difficult thing to be choosing between such two great candidates.
And that's what they should look like.
Yes,
no, that's what they should look like.
That is what it should look like, absolutely. And, it's really challenging. I will say that as a woman, I primarily endorse women before men, just because I feel like we need more women in office. But they are both really good candidates. It's very challenging.
Yeah.
And they both bring different aspects. I think James is a little more level-headed in the sense that he's a theologian, right? So he's used to calmly speaking to groups of people, but I love the tenacity and the pizzazz that Crockett brings, because she really holds their feet to the fire.
She does.
And I don't think that now is the time to play nice, if that makes sense. We're in a constitutional crisis, essentially. We have a federal government and a state government that's not following the Constitution. So I think that we need someone who's going to hold feet to the fire, and get stuff done. So I'm excited to see how the primaries turn out.
I'm excited too.
Either way, it doesn't matter who wins in November. I'm going to make sure that, throughout until November, make sure whoever wins, that we get them in office. Because if we don't make some serious changes right now, we are our democracy is literally eroding.
Yes, it's on the brink of literally destruction. Okay, so I do want to end off, if someone's listening and this feels delusional, exhausted, or checked out from politics, I think, why should they re-engage now? I would say democracy. Period.
To save democracy, period. Absolutely. I get it. Trust me, I was there. I'm a mom of 2 young girls, and I'm I don't want my girls to live in a world where they have less rights than their grandmothers. Do I need to move countries? I'm not going to.
Oh, I think about that all the time.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to do that. My family's been in Texas for 4 generations. My husband he's an 8th generation Texan. Our girls are 9th generation Texans.
Oh, shit, yeah.
So, I don't want to leave. I want to make this place better, but it's going to take everybody. And I think that if you're disillusioned now, literally just talk to somebody. And I think that through community, you will find that through delusionment, community can be created.
Yeah.
And we can make change, but you have to talk to people, you have to engage.
Yeah.
And you have to do a little bit of work. It's going to be a little bit of work, but it will pay off. Yeah. It will pay off, I promise.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much, Courtney Head, for talking to me. I do want to say, please go vote. Our country in Texas needs it so desperately. Midterm elections more than ever. Yeah. Go vote before, was it March 3rd?
Yeah,
March
so
3rd
early voting ends on the 27th, and then March 3rd is
March 3rd, and then show up for midterms in November. Please, please do. Please go follow the Coffee Slut Podcast. I will put the descriptions below. I will also leave Courtney's socials down below, and also just any information I feel like they would need. And that's it. I will talk to you guys in the next episode.